All right, folks, it is August the 12th, 2026, and a lot's going on in the world. We'll be talking about that here on Pod TV, and we'll see which of our regular panelists join us. And all along those lines, baby rescued from rubble in Colombia after devastating earthquake kills at least 181. So, as the death toll from Colombia earthquake rises to at least that number, rescuers are still hunting for survivors and all in that space. As a matter of fact, I'm seeing one number where it looks like it could have even topped the number of around 250. Neil Farage faces Count Benfest in the Clacton by-election. So how Nigel Farage ended up running against Count Benface in the Clacton. So Count Benface runs against Reform Party's Farage in the UK election, and all in that space. Count Benface, the man in the can with a plan, seeks a parliament seat. There's another person that looks like they're in a fox outfit that was also, I guess, campaigning as well, because they were saying protect British wildlife. So Nigel Farage looks trapped and rattled. Now the nationalist tide can be turned. And Putin threatens retaliatory seizures of European ships. He has threatened retaliation for Western seizures of Russian commercial vessels. Putin says that Russia will start seizing EU vessels if bloc goes after Russian ships. Putin is warning of a tit-for-tat seizures of European vessels. U.S. must return to interim deal, no ceasefire extension talks, senior Iranian sources are saying. So mediators are pushing for U.S.-Iran talks as MOU deadline approaches. Iran says no progress on reviving interim peace deal with the U.S. Pakistan, a couple of days ago, signaled progress on the U.S.-Iran deal as Washington and Tehran were trading reparations demands. But it doesn't look like these deals are anywhere near happening at this point. Indonesian rescuers evacuate dozens from a ferry fire that left at least one dead near Bali. One dead, more than 200 rescued after Indonesian ferry from Bali catches fire. And definitely that's something going on in that area. Reports are detailing Donald Trump's secret flight from Turkey. So that's something else that we're hearing about as well. Shoulder fired missile threat prompted Trump's plane roost, sources are saying. So President says Secret Service ordered plane switch. And Trump says he was at a greater risk on secret flight than decoy Air Force One. So close Trump aides, but no cabinet officials made the secret catering truck move. And Russia's Orsk refinery halted processing after the August 11th drone attack, sources say. And Russian civilian deaths are growing rapidly as Ukraine expands its air war. Ukraine drones tracked 750 miles inside Russia, killing at least 13, according to what authorities said a couple of days ago. 6 killed in Houthi attack on Bab al-Mandeb ship, Yemen's government says, and new attacks on shipping as Iran war talks hit a fresh impasse. Iranian-backed Houthis killed 6 in an attack on a vessel, and other developments are being reported in the Mideast as well. Inside the White House bet that Netanyahu's peace plan rejection is for show. U.S. allies said they're worried about Trump's clout after Netanyahu rejected the deal. Netanyahu won't leave Gaza alone without international intervention. And Netanyahu calculated that upsetting Trump is his least bad option. Spain prepares for an eclipse under the shadow of a wildfire risk. So definitely looks like Europe counts down to watch its first total eclipse in decades. So we'll see if Nick is still over there and he's going to get a chance to watch the eclipse. But Europe solar eclipse live. Millions are flocking to viewing spots in Spain, UK, and Iceland. So it looks like millions of people in Iceland and Spain are set for the event of the century eclipse. North Korea launches a suspected ballistic missile. So North Korea launches another missile towards sea ahead of U.S.-South Korea military drills. North Korea fires missile ahead of major U.S.-South Korea drills, and it looks like they've launched another ballistic attack missile as U.S.-South Korea prepare for those drills, as I just said. Rain pounds Beijing as Typhoon Dolphin sweeps through China. So it looks like it's bringing torrential rain and flooding to China. Mass evacuations in Beijing as Typhoon Dolphin brings more torrential rain to China and all along those lines. So definitely that's something that folks are talking about as well. China evacuates more than 1 million people as massive storm arrives. Hundreds more flights are canceled as tropical storm Dolphin causes flooding in eastern China. A fifth summer heat wave will hit Europe this week. Here's what to know. Europeans are braced for a fifth heat wave of 2026. Apparently, they've had enough. But Europe is the world's fastest warming continent, and some folks are asking what's to blame and all along those lines. Europe's extreme heat wave could cost the EU economy, it looks like about 180 billion pounds, if I'm seeing this news story correctly, and all along those lines. But that was being reported in Euro News. And Hormuz Straits will remain closed unless U.S. meets Iran's condition, is what Iranian security is saying, and all in that space. And there's an Israeli campaign to make southern Lebanon unlivable. Apparently, according to The Guardian, Israel has deliberately started wildfires in southern Lebanon, is what firefighters are saying. And some Americans are losing homes to Israel's war in Lebanon. So, new satellite imagery is showing the scales of Israeli destruction at Lebanon's Beaufort Castle. And Taiwan hits out at China over naval drill with Indonesia. Indonesia says Navy drill with China that angered Taiwan was routine. Getting ready to bring in definitely Rick. We'll see if anybody else joins us as well. I did see some shocking news that was going on. Apparently, David Crowley defeated Francesca Hung in the Wisconsin primary. So Crowley, a moderate Democrat, defeated Hung in the Wisconsin primary for governor. And a lot of people were thinking that Hung was going to be the one that won that whole election. But apparently, the centrist David Crowley won on this particular race, even though I think that it was a progressive that won in the other race in the Midwest, which I believe was, can't remember, I think it was Minnesota, if I remember correctly, and everything along those lines. But yeah, it looks like things are going not always the progressive's way. Yes, it was Minnesota. It says Peggy Flanagan wins Minnesota Democratic Senate primary, and that's something that's going on as well. So Lindell's defeat, Klobuchar's win, and progressives enter the Senate race there in Minnesota. So we'll see how this goes in that part of the world as well. And the GOP is mum on returning Miller's campaign cash. So Representative Max Miller, described as hot-headed and definitely having ways of misogyny by former classmates. And so Democrats plan new push to defeat Max Miller in Ohio after these abuse accusations. So Ohioans in U.S. Representative Max Miller's district want action and consequences as the House ethics probe is continuing. And there's a South Carolina GOP primary held to replace the late Lindsey Graham. So Senator Darlene Graham and Representative Ralph Norman have advanced to the GOP Senate primary runoff in South Carolina. So it looks like those will be the two that will be running in that race in order to see who will take that particular seat and all in that space. And a fighter jet intercepts a civilian plane over Geneva, Ohio. And definitely that's something where apparently Trump was attending a event and everything like that. It looks like Trump's Patriot games in Ohio and all in that space. But multiple planes were intercepted by F-16s during Trump's live golf outing. So this is another one of his golf outings as well. So like I said, getting ready to bring in Rick, see what he's got to say about a number of these stories and other stories as well. But how's it going, Rick? How's it going in California?
Okay. All right. So this is day 102 of national average gas prices being over $4 a gallon under Trump. So yeah, the centrist in Wisconsin, Crowley, beat Hong, or is beating Hong with, I don't know, 95, 96% of the vote in by less than 0.5%, by about 3,000 votes out of a total of more than 600,000 votes cast. This kind of takes a little air out of the Republican accusation that the Democrats are going socialist, because the socialist narrowly lost. She was expected to win. But it's not going to stop the Republicans from calling Democrats communists and everything. But
I'm sure they'll probably have something to say about the latest personal decision from AOC, but apparently Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has opened up about freezing her eggs, and apparently she's got women talking about that, and some people are asking if she's single because supposedly she reportedly split from her fiance Raleigh Roberts months before she started freezing these eggs. But she's revealed this decision to freeze her eggs, I guess maybe while she's waiting for a significant other in her life, and then maybe she'll decide, and also decide her political career, and then maybe at some point she'll decide to have babies, because you can do that.
So the story that Trump snuck off of Air Force One and flew out of Turkey on a different plane, but didn't tell the people on Air Force One that they were a target, continues to get some attention, though probably not among Trump's base. I doubt that Fox News is talking about this very much.
I doubt that they hear about that much as well. I do see a kind of crazy story, and I saw another thing that you'll be interested in that I just sent their one of their press agents a letter that I'm trying to get them on the show, but it's right up in one of your topics that you love to talk about, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But venomous snakes was apparently hiding in a football player's helmet during practice while he was wearing it. So a high school football player in Arkansas practiced with a 2-foot viper in his helmet. So I'm glad that he managed to get out alive and didn't get hurt. But the high school football player in Arkansas practiced with the venomous snake in his helmet, and this was in Maumelle. Maumelle football player finds the venomous snake inside his helmet during the practice a few days ago. But I don't know that I'd be wanting to do fuck. I might have to tell him we need to practice someplace else if there are venomous snakes floating around in our football field and everything like that.
So, yeah, I mean, it's football. It's brutal summer high school football practice time right now. Let's see how many high school football players there are.
There's probably a lot, because and this is also a time when there's a lot of heat going on, and a lot of times they are trying to do cautions and make sure that they aren't suffering from heat exhaustion. But I do know that sometimes there are incidences with heat exhaustion with our both football, high school and football players.
So there are 1.1 million high school football players. So stuff's going to happen. You're going to have people dropping over from heat exhaustion and some unfortunate stuff.
Yes, some fun. But this is the story that you'll be interested in, and then we'll get back to politics. But I just sent a letter to a lady named Lisa Warren, but she represents another lady named Victoria Heatherton. And Victoria Heatherton has written a book called The Friend Machine: On the Trail of AI Companionship. So she's definitely talking about the notion of AI girlfriends, because apparently the 2023 Google Trends indicated a 2,400% increase in searches for AI girlfriends, and millions of people are currently in what they consider to be serious relationships with AI. So I'm trying to invite her on because she's written a book about this.
So this ties into something I've been researching a little bit, which is young women are disgusted with men.
Yes.
Which leads to lower rates of people coupling up, of having babies, and having sex.
Yeah,
sex is down by about a third among young people compared to previous generations. Young people are having less sex than ever before. And I think a large part of it is that the women look at today's guys and are not thrilled with what they see.
I would agree with you on that. And just really quickly, they said that Heatherton, when she comes on shows, can delve into the evolving world of AI companionship, asking what it means to be alone and to be in love in a world where artificial intelligence is increasingly present, and can share the experiences of people from diverse backgrounds who have sought and found companionship in AI. So she's actually interviewed some people that have sought and found companionship. Now, one of the things that I've observed, and this is just my own observation being, I know you're married, but I'm still in that single space, is that there are a lot of young women out there that are frustrated with the men in their lives that are in the same age bracket. So definitely that's something that I've been seeing, because a number of young ladies, and they're not just looking for sugar daddies all the time, but they are, because I asked them, they're telling me that they're looking for people that are older, and in some cases much older than them, but at least I'd say 5 to 10 years older is the average and everything. But there are some people that
let's go back to the AI for a second. Right. So the technology is creeping towards this being a real thing from two directions. One is from the mannequins, from the sex dolls, which used to, when we were younger, they were a joke, right?
Right.
They were these basically they looked like a pool toy. You blew them up,
Right.
and I don't know how creepy you'd have to be to really. They were a joke gift for like a bachelor party or and you'd have to be like very desperate to climb on top of one of those things. Plus, I assume they would pop. And then in the past 20 years, you've got more realistic these real dolls that look more and more realistic. Um, but they still lie there and they don't do anything. But on the other hand, you can have AI companions that you talk to, online, and they've started to put that kind of technology in these mannequins, but it's still, it's still super creepy and not realistic at all. But within the next 10 years, you're going to get animated robotic dolls that can communicate with you. Their mouths move, the whole thing. And it'll still be super creepy, but it'll be close enough to a human that you'll have hundreds of thousands of people, of guys, and I guess women, getting them across the U.S. and eventually millions. But we're not there yet.
No, we're not there yet.
There is a whorehouse in Germany where you go to have sex with the dolls, but again, you got to be super weird and creepy at this point.
Yeah, you gotta be weird and creepy. Speaking of weird and creepy, apparently Trump is in the news for something not all that pleasant. I do work at a historical venue, and I see that bulldozing has begun at the Big Bend National Park for border construction. So apparently Trump's border wall construction is set to bulldoze a West Texas historic site. So a lot of times he doesn't care about history and all along those lines. So apparently even the bipartisan Texans are slamming the Big Bend border construction.
I've read a little bit. It's very inaccessible. And almost nobody crosses the border there, and they're spending $1 billion to put up fencing there to stop a problem that isn't really a problem. But Texas overall is problematic if you're going to build the wall, because most of the border in Texas is the Rio Grande River, and we've seen what happens when you try to fence the river. You get situations where you put barriers in the river that kill people, that make them drown. They get caught in the barbed wire and the whatever else is in there. Or you fence it off on shore, and that screws farmers, because most of the border in Texas is privately owned by farmers who need to get to the river for crops and livestock, and you can't deny the private farmers access. Or I guess you can, but you're screwing them.
You're totally screwing them if you're doing that and everything along those lines. So that's not good whatsoever. There are other primaries. Apparently, Democrats take a 6 shot at ousting a popular GOP governor who voted for Harris there in Vermont. So Amanda Janu wins the Democratic primary for Vermont governor. So Progressive Outsider wins the Democratic nomination to challenge Vermont's Republican governor, who apparently was a liberal Republican governor. And John Larson lost the Connecticut Democratic primary to Luke Brannan. So a veteran Democratic congressman lost Tuesday. He's not the only one to go down this election cycle and everything like that. So longtime anti-Trump Democrat was ousted after a tough primary after an upstart progressive.
So this is the biggest year in history of sitting Congress people, senators and representatives, not going to be returning to Congress. More than 80 out of 535 senators and representatives have already been knocked out or decided to retire, or have just gone ahead and died. And that's an all-time record, and that generally speaks to the party in power, which is the Republicans, losing big in the midterms. The more people who are knocked out or drop out, before the general election, the worse it looks for the party in charge.
Yeah, no doubt about that and everything. Apparently in Alabama, there's a lot of apathy because Alabama congressional primary turnout was very low. They held their second primary on Tuesday, and apparently there was a lot of confusion, and that caused some concerns about low turnout in that southern state and everything like that. So I guess in some states, people are not even really caring about the election or paying that much attention to the
Well,
election.
we've got 83 days until the midterms, less than 12 weeks. Trump has said in an interview with, Trump mainly does interviews with far right news sources, which often means it's a lunatic talking to another lunatic. And in an interview with a guy named Wayne Root, Trump said, yeah, he might have to declare a national emergency with regard to the elections, that he's not going to rule out the idea of him just saying, well, it's an emergency and we have to do these rules. And he's going to try to impose, rules on who can vote and how you can vote. And this likely won't go it'll cause a lot of chaos, but quickly, within days, the courts would overrule him because according to the Constitution, the federal government does not run the elections, the individual states do. So we could say national emergency, and maybe some red states would go along with him. People would sue in those states. They would obviously take it to court in the blue states, and a lot of whatever Trump is going to pull will get knocked down. But we are only 38 days from early voting starting in 4 or 5 states. So anyway, I keep saying hold on to your butts, but yeah, do keep a nice tight grip on your own butt because things are going to get crazy.
Speaking of things getting crazy, apparently Trump's White House construction, we know he pretty much put a wrecking ball through the East Wing and everything like that, but they're saying that it could soar above $900 million. So he's already done a lot of damage, and apparently the real demolition is only just begun. So what is our thoughts about this? Are we going to get him?
Well, okay, let's talk about it. It started off, it was going to be $200 million, and it was going to be funded through private contributions. Now you're saying $900 million, and the government's paying for it. So it's a lot of bullshit. Also, it's been ruled illegal. Doesn't matter. Trump's going to keep doing it. But it's more Trump horseshit. That he spent, I don't know how many million on, he took they're bronze statues throughout DC. He covered a couple of them with almost 24, almost pure gold, carat 12 gold leaf. And now they're super shiny, which isn't necessarily an improvement because when they were just bronze, you could tell what they showed, but now they're like giant mirrors, and all you see are these blobs of light, which look fancy in a cheesy way, the way Trump likes, but you can't see any detail. And he spent millions on this. So, yeah, he's kind of junking up Washington, D.C., which isn't, as Sasha would say, it's not a chief concern. The chief concern is that the Republicans are taking money away from Americans, but it is emblematic of Trump's kind of bullshit.
Mm-hmm. What's your take
There's
on
all this bullshit, all this gold things in Oval Office and elsewhere. He's trying to impress his cabinet, the people around him, there's 5-6 people who are always around him, because they will impress their 5-6 people each. So he cares about very, very small group of people who are mostly idiots, who are following him every step. And the rest, he believes that, well, somehow people don't care much about election. People don't care about this and about that. And right now he's looking for some tricks to help his midterm elections. And there is nothing can be done about Iranian situation. So now he turned his attention fully to stock market, which is a very good thing for people like myself and others, because the portfolio is skyrocketing with each stock market movement. But how average American taxpayers are benefiting from that, unclear. But that's only one trick that he has left. That's it. He's
Yeah,
out of
the July inflation numbers came out today. It was 3.4%, which is a pretty high overall. Prices are up about 5% during Trump's year and a half so far in the presidency. That's still less than Biden's 20% during his presidency. But nobody is listening when you say that Trump's screwing up COVID is what led to most of the inflation under Biden.
The problem though, Rick, is that we jump to 2022 and 2023 when we're talking about inflation. We never talk about 2024 or when we hand it off or when the exchange happened. And that's where the argument, again, just like I was talking about yesterday, when we're talking about this, we should be talking about the inflation rate was going down under Biden. The inflation rate when Trump took office was lower than it is now. So Trump has actually made the inflation rate go higher. So when we talk about the Biden years and all this other stuff, why are we jumping to 2022? Why are we jumping to 2023? We're not actually talking about the inflation rate. We're creating a narrative that's based on the talking points that the GOP and Donald Trump want to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, but what can you do about it? Because you're not going to get Fox News to change their tune. You're not going to get Republican representatives when they go on the news saying this is all Biden's fault, even though Trump has been president now for 19 months. And it's because of the war he started. And in fact, gas prices under Biden were Trump's fault. Nobody ever talks about that because gas went to under $2 a gallon during 2020, Trump's COVID year. And Trump, to help his friends in the oil business, negotiated a 2-year deal with OPEC to limit production so they could sell gas for more. And by the end of that deal, that takes you into Biden. And that limited production deal is a major reason why gas got expensive under Biden, because Trump screwed him. But nobody has the mental bandwidth to go into that.
Well, the thing is, it's not that we don't have the mental bandwidth. For example, the Afghanistan pullout, that was also an issue created by Trump that honestly Biden had to deal with because he actually extended the date that they were supposed to leave. Trump had already pulled out and dropped us down to 2,500 soldiers that were left there. Then on top of that, Trump had also released 5,000
Taliban.
Yeah, but we
Trump
never
negotiated a deal saying, hey, Taliban, don't attack the Capitol until if you promise to hold off on attacking the Capitol until next year, then we will withdraw entirely. And then Biden inherited this agreement, this terrible agreement, and held off a little bit, but it's both their faults. It's Trump set it up, and then Biden should have had better intelligence.
And the thing is, but we always, yes, both were at fault, but we only put one at fault.
That's right. In terms of public opinion,
the problem is that, again, we fall into the trap and we get into these discussions about, inflation was higher under Biden. The Afghan pullout was worse with Biden because we're allowing that discussion to shift to that direction. Yes, we know MAGA is going to say this. Yes, we know Fox News is going to say this. But we have to be honest and push back. This is why I'm a big Charles Blow fan, for example. Sit there and I'm not going to sit here and let you lie and constantly lie. And then I'm going to argue your lie. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to actually tell the truth about what took place. The inflation rate was lower when When Trump came into office, the inflation rate was lower. We had more jobs created under Biden. Right now we've lost jobs. That's why I push back against David. Oh well, we lost. No, jobs are jobs. People are getting, so that's where the pushback has to happen. And now there's this whole, when we talk about transgender issues, the Democrat Party needs to stop the culture wars. Nobody's talking about transgender issues but the Republican Party. That's the only group that's talking about that because it's a distraction from everything else. There's not been a Democratic Socialist. There's not been a Democrat. There's not even been a liberal or anybody else going out there and saying, hey, we must do this transgender stuff. No, you have Enes Kanter. You have all these Republicans. You have all talking about, hey, women and men and women's sports. Nobody's talking about it. So that's where I get it.
It's a minor it's a joke in some instances. Sasha has a thing to say.
Yeah.
I think the biggest trap by far is Pentagon and its budget. Now, so it's now trillion and a half. So this trillion and a half the United States don't have. They have to again to increase is dead, and therefore interest that it's paying on it's dead. So it's not just trillion and a half, it's trillion and a half plus interest. Remember that. Now, so what American people getting for their money? They're getting for their money armies that cannot fight any wars. They're losing all wars for almost half a century. They're losing wars in Vietnam, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, now in Iran. They are losing. So what they can do, they can possibly win the war against Iran if they will put boots on the ground, and that would lead to losses of human life. So we have an army financed to the tune of $1.5 trillion that cannot put boots on the ground because of possible losses and cannot win without that as well. So why do we need an army for $1.5 trillion a year that cannot put boots on the ground, that cannot win any war? What's the purpose? $1.5 trillion plus interest, it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. There's no doubt about that. And they don't really have a reason to afford it and everything like that.
I mean, the couple of words, they don't have a reason. This was not an imminent threat. This is just a war of choice. This is actually what other countries that we stand up against or supposedly used to stand up against. This is what we're doing the same thing that Russia did to Ukraine with Iran. And I hate to put it that way, but that's what's going on. So there was no imminent threat. This was all Donald Trump coming up with some idea that he wanted to be some savior of the world and be able to take the oil from Iran and take all this control in the Middle East.
He thought it would be an easy victory. He was completely wrong.
He thought that he could get the same deal with Iran that he got with Venezuela. Venezuela, we don't talk about it anymore. Nothing's changed there. Nothing. There's still the political prisoners. There's still the deaths. There's still all the poverty and everything else. All that's still happening. The only thing we took away is what people heard, Maduro.
And also, we stole $13 billion worth of oil from them. Nobody knows where that $13 billion went.
So nothing's changed in Venezuela. But again, and you cannot win a war if you don't have a plan. If you don't understand what you're doing, Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth, then you're gonna lose. And that's what we're doing right now, is just losing. That's why
the way to win, there's an easy way to win in Iran, which is just quit military operations and say we won. The strait opens up.
Well,
I mean, that's the other.
Well, the
you're
thing
not
is,
going to put boots on the ground.
Yeah,
you're not going to win. But Trump has no problem, making stuff up. So just leave let the strait open up, the price of gas will drop, and just say we achieved our objectives. Don't say
the price will go up.
Iran will not allow US just pack their things and move out. No. You have to pay, baby. It's a payback time, baby. So not to run, not so fast.
And that's very true, because there will be a toll. Prices of oil and prices of gas are not going to go down because Iran's going to make a ton of money off of it. So
the tolls that Iran will charge will only add like 1% to the price of oil.
But the thing is, we don't exactly know how much they're going to charge. If I tell you, Rick, right now that every time you open the door, it's negotiable between us. Every time you open the door, I'm going to give you $5. Are you going to open the door just once and get $5, or are you going to keep opening it until you get some more money?
All right. So say Iran says, yeah, you've caused $100 billion worth of damage to our country. We're not going to open the strait. So, all right. So maybe pay them in secret. You know, we've had a series of agreements with Iran over the past 20, 30, 50, 70 years. I'm sure that Trump, who specializes in like shady deals, could negotiate a way to secretly pipe money to
Not in this case, Rick, there is complete distrust between American and Iranians. There are no secret deals of any kind. Furthermore, Iranians are trying to humiliate US and Trump. So the more they will say, oh yeah, let's do it secret, we'll give you something. No. Did you hear what American says? That they wanted to have something. They will humiliate US and Trump. There is no escape from that until midterm election. So this is a tragedy for Trump and stupid Republicans, stooges who supported him all the way. You get your revenge now.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens in the midterm and all along those lines. But
I've got some numbers here. So Nate Silver is this election pollster who a lot of people think is reasonably accurate. And Nate Silver is saying that the Senate, that the Dems have a 57% chance of taking the Senate, picking up 4 seats, and that they have a close to 87% chance of winning the House, picking up 18 seats. So, you know, the Senate really, you can't, it's too unpredictable.
Yeah, that's not
the House looks pretty good for the Dems.
Yeah, the House looks like
what's important is yesterday I think we discussed the possibilities that that what a lot of Democrats think, that the first thing what they have to do once in power is immediately start impeachment. Now, some people object to that, saying, well, we already had 2 impeachments, it's impossible to remove him. No, it's not the fact whether he will be removed or not. It's a procedure under which everything will be scrutinized. All the people responsible will be brought to questioning. Subpoena will be start flying. So the process itself is more important than the result of impeachment.
So maybe we should explain how investigations in the House work. Whichever party has the most people, and it's been the Republicans, they determine what gets investigated. So like when Fauci got pulled in, well, that was the Senate, but still, they pull in Fauci, they yell at Fauci. Pam Bondi had investigations. Epstein doesn't get investigated. They determine they're in charge. If the Democrats have a majority, then they will determine who gets subpoenaed and what investigations are done.
Exactly right.
By the way, it looks like the ICE is back in the news again. I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts around this because I actually had the unpleasant opportunity to see somebody actually pass from a taser attack years ago and all along those lines. But now ICE is planning to spend up to $20 million on electric shock gloves.
Shock mittens. So they want gloves that when you grab somebody,
shock gloves that they can used to shock people. They're saying that, they're supposed to be safe, but they say that about tasers too. So what is our thoughts around this $20 million on electric shock gloves that the agents will be wearing?
It just sounds like assholery. But you put on gloves, and if you grab somebody, you can give them electric shocks. What is that except some Nazi shit? How does that make their job easier?
It's assault.
It's totally assault.
I mean, if they honestly, it's straight up assault. This is torture. This is what happened to the body cameras, not using them.
They got what, $20 million to outfit everybody with body cameras, and yeah, they don't wear them. If they wear them, they don't turn them on. Every week you hear several stories. There was one yesterday where the ICE guy pointed his gun at a citizen, and the citizen in their car is like, "What are you doing? I didn't do anything." And the ICE guy said, "You tried to run me over with your car." And the driver says, "I've got a dash cam. I've got everything." And then the ICE guy backs away, and you don't even know who did it because the ICE guy's wearing a mask. But the dash cam thing forced him to quit doing his bullshit.
Yep, no doubt about that. Hey, both you, Rick, and Jacoby, because this is a separate story, but it is impacted by something that Trump did. And this is the whole notion of either protecting or not protecting our social media outlets. So they're saying that because of a recent court case, tech companies may face thousands of lawsuits over social media addiction. This is after an appeal court ruling that came down recently saying that Meta can't stop the state's $1.4 trillion lawsuit from going to trial. So what is our thoughts? I know other countries
So what's the lawsuit for?
It's going to allow the individuals to sue about social media, that the tech companies are at fault for social media addiction.
So if some kid in middle school tries to kill themselves because of bullying on social media, the parents can go ahead and sue, because the social media, they like to throw up their hands and say, "It's not us, we just provide the forum. It's the people who are bullying."
Right.
So it lets you, because for years, and it's still mostly in effect, you cannot sue gun manufacturers for gun deaths. The gun lobby got into, lobbied Congress to make it say it's not our fault, it's not the guns, it's how you use the guns. And social media has been arguing the same thing. And this ruling says no, that if you're providing a forum that is killing people via bullying or I guess when AI eggs people on to kill themselves, you are responsible.
Yeah, that's the general gist of it and everything like that. We talked about this yesterday, Rick, but apparently yesterday the FBI is touting its 6,000 arrests and 44% homicide drop 1 year into Trump's DC crime crackdown. So apparently, he's going to claim that this is all his doing, as they are touting more than 16,000 arrests as the federal surge in DC reaches its first year. So what's our take on this notion that he's trying to claim that he's cleaned up DC and everything like that? So this is...
Well, it's part of a long-term trend that, on the one hand, has been since 2021. 2021 was a huge crime year under COVID. And it's since 2021, crime's been dropping a lot nationwide. Crime's also been dropping by 50% since 1992 because of long-term trends. We started throwing more people into prison. The U.S. has more people in prison than any other country in the world. We also have a higher incarceration rate than any other country, even the podunk little dictatorships. So you also, street crime is down because nobody goes on the street. Everybody stays home and just buys shit off of Amazon. So long-term trends, I'm looking at the past year of homicide rate in DC. So Trump, probably had, he put the military out on the street in DC. Did that help a little bit? I don't know. But he benefits from, as we've talked about, he claims credit for long-term trends. Fentanyl deaths are down in part because a lot of the people who abuse fentanyl, they're already dead. So anyway, let me look this up.
Yeah.
So from 2024 to 2025, DC homicides decreased 32%, going from 187 people murdered in 2024 to 127 in 2025. This year continues to see a downward trend.
This year continue to see a downward trend and everything like that. I know we've got Steve joining us. So we'll see what he's got on his mind and everything like that. But I also saw.
Hey there, I would open up today, but I've got to get in my civilian work clothes and go to work. So I'll be opening up World Politics tomorrow and Friday, Ukrainian show. I'll be with Sasha. But no, all I want to say, just the main things you probably already talked about. Iran is resisting on opening up the Strait of Hormuz until the United States can do things on their terms, so it doesn't look like we're any progress there. We're picking up from the rubble of Colombia, the Democratic Socialist Song, I think in the state of Wisconsin, lost the moderate David Crowley, so that was a big loss for the left-wing progressive Democrats. Amy Klobuchar, who's a friend of ours at my firm, who has won the Democratic nomination for governor of Minnesota. She will be replacing Tim Walz, who was the vice presidential candidate. Klobuchar, for those of you who remember, is a United States senator. She actually participated in Joe Biden's first swearing in and was in charge of his transition team. But it's going to be interesting to see. And that's really about it. And there's also some news about some kind of a covert operation that Trump was trying to get out of Turkey. And Senator Schumer is really upset about how Congress hasn't been briefed about this. So the games keep continuing. The primaries are going on. By the end of August, early September, everyone will have a better idea what is going to happen. What I'm hearing in North Carolina is that the negative attacks from Whatley on Roy Cooper don't seem to be working. His poll numbers aren't moving up. The gap is narrowing. But they're going to put in about 400 to 500 million in Texas. So that could help Roy Cooper a lot in terms of just that money that would have gone to Whatley. So I do think Cooper is going to pull this out to be a United States senator. Wouldn't be surprised if he's a vice presidential nominee, the former governor of North Carolina, and hopefully by then will be a United States senator. But that's all I got on that. And then we'll be talking about Ukraine and Iran on Friday, and tomorrow evening world politics at 5 o'clock. We'll continue our theme of the changing world order and what it means for all of us.
All right, can we go back for a sec to crime rate in DC? Homicide rates dropped even more from 23 to 24 under Biden, going from 274 to 187. Then they dropped in the subsequent years. The reasons are homicide detectives, Metro Police got better at solving murders, going from a 40% clearance rate to a 60% clearance rate. So maybe people are thinking, well, maybe I just can't kill people willy-nilly because I'll get caught. Stronger prosecutorial coordination, violence intervention investments, and then you got federal and law enforcement surges. That would be a Trump thing. And like I said, the broader national trend of crime in general dropping. So among the reasons for crime, it was dropping already under Biden, but Trump gets a little bit of credit maybe, but mostly it's other stuff going on.
So my concern, crime is tied to poverty and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
we are now sitting in a K-style economy where the wealth gap is getting larger. A lot of people becoming more impoverished. Stuff is becoming more expensive. I would say that we need to watch out to see if there's going to be, because honestly, this did happen under COVID, if there will be a spike in crime rates coming up soon.
It seems so. I looked up, the previous era in American history, the Gilded Age, the 1880s, was the previous high watermark for income inequality. I just asked, was there a ton of crime? And yeah, the AI says significant crime driven by urbanization, extreme poverty, overcrowded tenements, and systemic corruption. So, I think it's reasonable to think that economic conditions will maybe give us a bump in crime. On the other hand, it's fancier to be poor now than it was in the 1880s. That almost everybody can afford a flat screen TV. Does that make a difference that you can stay home and watch?
Well, the thing is, though, Rick, it ain't fancy if you can't eat. It's not fancy if you can't feed your kids.
Exactly.
So, I mean, saying that you can afford a flat screen TV, I don't think that's the fancy that we're talking about. I mean, if you look at the average household income, and as inflation eats into wages or any wage growth that has happened or any uptick in anything, yeah. I mean, if you can't feed your family, yeah, crime rates are going to spike. You'll have more, like in COVID, people were stuck at home. People couldn't really afford stuff or pay for things and everything like that. What do we have? A spike in domestic abuse. Yeah. So you have, I mean, there's so many social economic factors that are going poorly now. And these spikes are going to begin to happen. And the first thing that they're going to say, and this is why, again, I have to push back on a lot of the talking points, is because if the Democrats take over the House and the Senate next year, the first thing, and we begin to have that spike, the first thing that's going to be said is, hey, you see, when the Democrats are in charge, look at the crime rates. That's going to be all the talking points.
Yeah, that's going to be the talking point.
So right now, Chuck Schumer is in charge of, what is he, Senate Minority Leader?
The Senate Minority. Yeah.
All right, there's a lot of calls for saying he's old, he's out of touch, we need new leadership. So what you're saying, Jatovi, about, like, we know what the talking points are going to be, and we should be like coming up with our own talking points. Dems should be, and that is kind of a leadership-based thing. So are we going to get new, more nimble leadership?
I mean, we need younger leadership that is in the social media space. We need better marketers. Like, honestly, El Said is great at it. Mamdani is great at it. Honestly, AOC, great at it. You've got to have those talking points, and you've got to have what you want the party to say and be about, to be up front. You've got to be able to push back against the onslaught of complete and blatant lies, and you've got to talk to the party so the party doesn't keep repeating the same lies that the Republican Party is saying. Again, I go back to the transgender issue as a prime example. Why are we going back and forth talking about 9 people that are competing?
Yeah, aren't a couple lunatic guys, professional basketball players, trying to join the WNBA?
Yeah, Enes Kanter and I forgot the other guy's name. But either way, both of them. I think the other guy was up on domestic abuse charges against his wife or something like that. Enes Kanter is just Enes Kanter.
Okay,
Either
but
way,
I mean, it would be a comedy movie, right? It would be like a Wayans Brothers movie, like but it's real life, and the timing is suspicious that it's
well,
happening right before the midterms.
it's happening because the Republican Party has nothing to talk about. They can't talk about the economy because it sucks. They can't talk about honestly immigration because it sucks. They can't talk about peace in the Middle East because it sucks. They have nothing to talk about. So what they're doing is the culture wars. And this is the same thing that happened in 2024. They ran with the culture wars. That's all they talked about Kamala Harris about.
By the way,
Because they never talked about the economy. She had a better economic plan. That is what the whole play is.
It's three, by the way, and they're all like not that talented former players. Because, like you said, it's Enos Kanter, Freedom, Ross White, but the other one y'all were trying to remember, and apparently Larry Sanders have announced their intentions to enter the WNBA draft. So those are the three that have tried to say that they would be interested in entering the draft. So Enos Kanter, Freedom, Ross White, and Larry Sanders announced their intentions to get into the draft. I know that at 1 o'clock we've got the investment show with Sasha, and I think Jim Eid will be joining him and all along those lines. I was just curious, Sasha, because the other story that I didn't get to that I was just curious about is there going to be some concern that U.S. businesses and farms don't have to report their ownership details? Because this is a new Treasury ruling that just came down. I think it was yesterday. So FinCEN is permanently eliminated beneficial ownership reporting for U.S. entities. So I guess
why is that? That sounds like it welcomes corruption, right? Like, so yeah, it's more bullshit from the Trump administration. There's a similar ruling that for years, for decades, there have been limits put on the percentage of local TV stations that can be owned by a single entity, because you don't want to, like Sinclair Broadcasting is a hyper conservative company that is buys up a small, they've got deep pockets, they buy local news channels, and then they force the anchors in their all markets they write editorials at their headquarters for every local anchor to have to deliver. And to prevent people from getting propagandized, I don't think you're allowed to own more than 40% of the local news channels in the country or something. It's not really a tough bar to, but that is, Trump swept that away.
He also swept away this notion of tariffs, because I did see, and I know Sasha's gone now, but Canada is apparently going to have to deal with this August 19th, which is a week from today, tariff deadline. So Canada's top negotiators are told their U.S. counterpoints the August 19th tariffs could halt trade talks. So this is definitely have some impact on us as Canada is preparing to halt booze bans and meet other U.S. demands in exchange for tariff relief. But we'll see how this all plays out, because apparently it's forcing some of the Canadian companies to move south of the border.
So, well, Trump claims that tariffs increase American jobs and industry.
That's what he
and if you look at overall statistics, that is not happening.
And this is ridiculously
the job growth in the U.S. is down 88% in the 16 months since Trump introduced tariffs.
And these tariffs for Canada are ridiculously high. It looks like they could face potentially 50% United States tariffs by August 19th. So
which is crazy, because Canada is our friend. They are not a hostile country.
Think about this is always the crazy part to me when we talk about tariffs, and even when David Walker comes on and says his thing about tariffs and stuff too. We always talk about, we don't want countries to take advantage of us and blah 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 blah. If you think about it, if we are the number one economy across the globe, that's what we're. Every economist says the U.S. is the number one economy across the globe, right? Mm-hmm. Biggest economy, all this other stuff, all these glowing things. And that's been said for decades on decades on decades.
Decade.
Yet Trump comes in and talks about these tariffs because people are taking advantage of us so badly. Yet we're still number one economy. So really, are people taking that much advantage of us? I mean, that's where it gets to how dumb do we have to be to fall for everyone in the world is taking advantage of us, and we're so broke and poor off. The number one economy across the globe.
So China leads the world in manufacturing crap, right? That's what they specialize in. They've got 150 cities in China with more than 1 million people. All these cities are manufacturing cities. I wanted to give my wife a present, and I bought her some new underwear, and out of China, nice underwear for $1 a pair, because that's China's deal. The government, they're an entrepreneurial dictatorship, and if you want to make stuff and sell it cheap in the States and to the rest of the world, the government will help you out because it's part of their program of economic dominance. Kill us with our own consumer habits. But the U.S., so if China's going to dominate the cheap underwear market, the U.S., we have to find our niche, and our niche has been high tech, right? And we should be leading the world in robotics, in stuff that the U.S. is great at. But right now we've got these incoherent policies imposed by the dumbest president since Warren Harding. And it costs us dominance and it costs us time, because once Trump is out of office, we found out under Biden, it takes years to undo the crap he did.
Yeah, but it takes you time to undo it and get ready to wrap up and everything. But speaking of China, and I was going to get to this, so I just to say this really lastly, the former Chinese premier that actually brought China into the economic realm apparently passed away earlier on Wednesday. So former Chinese premier Zhu Rongji died in Beijing on Wednesday at the age of 97. So he definitely lived a good long life. He's known as an aggressive economic reformer and economic China's premier from 1998 to 2003 and spearheaded the country's entry into the World Trade Organization. So he definitely did a lot of the things that China is now known for in terms of.
So China is a dictatorship. So they have their own problems, because whether China, works well depends on the people at the top who determine all the policies. And so I've heard from people who know China that China in recent years hasn't been doing as well as it possibly could, because the people at the top don't understand business and economics as well as this guy who just died did, who was responsible for China's explosive growth economically until he quit in 2003.
Because they said he restructured the national tax system to increase central government revenue, and he earned a reputation as a blunt, sharp-tongued, and pragmatic leader who was unafraid to publicly criticize corruption or inefficiency. So to your point, it sounds like some of the newer government officials there in China are maybe not as
so we can still compete with China if we didn't have jackasses in charge. And maybe we can compete even so, because the U.S. system is fairly resilient. We survived 4 years of Trump. We survived 4 years of the aftermath of Trump with Biden, who was pretty good, but also kind of hid from the American people. And now we're 2 years into Trump again, and we're not in ruins. We're fucked up in a lot of ways, but we're still a functioning country in a lot of ways.
Yeah, just before we get out of here, seeing that he also overhauled and privatized failing state-owned enterprises, which transformed China into the global manufacturing powerhouse that it is now, and he tamed high inflation during the 1990s through strict fiscal discipline. So, yeah, it seems like he was doing a lot of things that maybe...
Yeah, but he hasn't been in charge for 23 years.
Exactly.
All right, I gotta go. I will
And
see you guys.
I got Modern Investment at 1, and I've got Medicare Moments at 12. So get ready to get out here. We got some other shows coming up later on.